always take a moment to perceive my bookcase because it's finally organized and it will probably never be this organized again. Hello, happy 2022. You are sitting very tall today, so I have to sit up very straight. Yet my name is Hannah. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not new, welcome back. I am back from vacation and ready to finish up my December books here halfway through January. So welcome to a very low energy December books part 2. I'm gonna do probably like 2 or 3 final 2021 related videos, and then it'll be onward and upward 2022. I'm really tired. Also, I'm filming during the day, which I never do, so the light will be variable. All right, I have 4 final books of December to talk about, so I'm just gonna get right to it. The first book I want to talk about today is Munich by Robert Harris. I read it physically. This book is a political thriller, actually, set like right before the kind of outbreak of World War II. At the Munich conference, where various European heads of state all kind of got together to try to last-ditch effort stop World War II from happening. Our main character, his name is Hugh Leggett, or Legat, I'm not sure. He's this kind of junior diplomatic figure in the British Foreign Office. But his friend from university, Paul, works kind of in the equivalent office for the German government. And shortly before this conference is due to happen, Hugh gets this kind of mysterious document and he kind of gets pulled into this conspiracy plot. Very quick before I actually talk about this book, do the characters have different names in different editions? I was very confused reading the Goodreads blurb after reading this. Hugh's name was not Hugh, it was Guy, and Paul von Hartmann was Richard von Holtz. So that's weird. Does someone have a UK edition who can tell me if the names are the same? Anyways, this book first came on my TBR, like when it came out. I remember seeing it on a table at Barnes & Noble, and this cover just like really jumped out at me. I just thought it looked very foreboding and like a good political thriller. So it was on my TBR for a while and I just hadn't gotten around to reading it. And then the paperback came out, and the paperback cover I hated so much, it literally like gave me the ick for this book. Like I did not want to read it. Then a couple months ago, I'm browsing in Barnes & Noble's bargain area and I see the hardcover for $7, so I grabbed it. I had also at that point heard about the upcoming Netflix film adaptation, which is due out, I think, in January still, so it's like right around the corner. I really liked this, actually. It's not generally the kind of book that I read. Political thrillers, I read quite a bit of historical fiction, but political thrillers are kind of outside my wheelhouse, and this is like a kind of a marriage of the two. But it played out really interestingly. So a lot of times my issue with like historical thrillers that are based around true events is that to a degree, you as the reader kind of know how it's going to end, especially with something like this. And like, I know no matter what happens in the course of this book, World War II does happen. I know they are not able to stop it. So a lot of times books like these kind of lose their teeth with me. So what ends up being very important is the characters. So while big picture I know what happens, I don't know what's going to happen to these individual characters. So it's very important for the reader to really care about these characters. I think Paul and Hugh were interesting enough. In a book like this, the tension and what should be the character's motivation should lie kind of like in the work that they're doing and their relationship with each other. And everything else, it kind of feels like it doesn't necessarily add much to their character. Like it's a whole thing throughout this book that like he was having marital problems, and like, cool, what does that have to do with the fate of the world? Like we already have stakes, we already have characters. Telling me more stakes and more shit about these characters that's not pertinent and doesn't actually add anything to the character or their thoughts or motivations, really, it just kind of takes up space. Another complaint is that this book can have times where it's a little dull. Even though it is a thriller, it is like a diplomatic thriller, so sometimes it felt like pages and pages and pages were spent just like establishing what building this meeting is in and what room in the building and how to get to that room and like what 6 or 7 historical figures are at the meeting, and like before you know it 20 pages have gone by. It's just like people walking from conference room to office building to hotel back to the conference room, and it's like thrilling. But overall, I did like it. I mean, it was a pretty quick read. It's not very long and it's not super deep. For lack of a better descriptor, it's kind of like a dad book. Yeah, that was exactly kind of what I was hoping it would be. The second book I want to talk about today is Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. I listened to the audiobook on Libby, which was narrated by the author, which I love when that happens. It's kind of, okay, so Johnny Appleseed is kind of this slice of life narrative about a guy named Johnny. Johnny is a self-described two-spirit indigiqueer sex worker who lives in Canada. Ostensibly, it's a week in his life as he's trying to figure out a way to get back to the reservation where he grew up for a funeral. But it kind of dips in and out of there. Lots of flashbacks, lots of stories, basically from his whole life on how he got to be where he is, and all of the relationships in his life and all of the stories from his life, really. This was a really good read. It was not always an easy read. It was very short, but there was some times where it was, you know, pretty bleak. And there were other times where it was very joyous and uplifting. It was really great kind of push and pull. Johnny is like a fascinating main character. He kind of lives at this like confluence of all of these identities and like finding the balance within himself and like within his environment and figuring out, you know, who he is, really. It's something I noticed and then was pointed out in the author's note, which I loved. I loved how large the women in Johnny's life loomed. There's a character named Jordan who is, at a basic level, his best friend's girlfriend, as well as his mom and his grandma, his cookum. I just really loved reading that and reading like the importance that the women in Johnny's life hold for him. Also, his best friend Tias and their kind of very fraught relationship was like really compelling and really heart-wrenching to read. So yes, this was very cool. Again, very quick read. I know Joshua Whitehead has a couple poetry collections as well, so I may need to look into those because I loved this. All right, the third book to talk about today was Lanny by Max Porter. I listened to the audiobook for this one on Libby as well. The jacket copy on this one is a little bizarre. There's this quaint little English village that's not far from London, and there is a boy who lives there named Lanny with his mom and his dad, and his best friend is this artist named Peter who kind of gives him like his art lessons. However, the village is owned, watched over by, stewarded by this kind of ancient being named Dead Papa Toothwart. And that's kind of the whole jacket copy. Now, this book has some great stuff in it. There's a lot to like about this. There's really great contemplations on like community and parenthood and creativity and Englishness, really. So that's terrific. However, I just did not vibe with this book. A lot of it was not lost on me, but maybe wasted on me. I don't know a lot about like different literary movements, but from my understanding, this book is postmodern. And the only other book that I know for sure I've recently read that was also postmodern was White Noise, and I didn't like that book either. So maybe This was just all a learning experience to learn that I'm not really into postmodern literature. Another gripe I kind of had about this was there are these kind of protracted sequences that are just like little decontextualized bits of like village gossip and just like the chatter in the village at a given time in the narrative, and they can be very enlightening. They do a lot to set the mood, but also they feel so frequent and so long that they just kind of feel like they're taking up space. Again, this is not a long book at all. It might be because I listened to the audiobook, so they are like literally like almost overlapping, like back to back to back voices just saying stuff, but damn, that made it kind of challenging. And like I said, it's not bad. I just really did not care for it. There are so many 4 and 5-star reviews for this book. There are readers for this book. There are people who love it. I'm just not one of them, I think. I kind of feel bad ragging on it because I didn't technically hate it, but it was just like, I don't want to be reading this anymore. At least it was short. And the last book I read in December and the last book I read in 2021 was The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien. I read it physically. This is a bind-up of the whole Country Girls trilogy. They're 3 pretty short novellas. And I've just read the first one so far. This is a coming-of-age story about 2 friends named Kate and Baba from the countryside in Ireland, and just kind of follows them through their adolescence as they are going to school. They end up going to school at a convent together. And then when they finish school, they go to Dublin together. These books, especially this first one, were hugely influential to kind of contemporary Irish literature. It was also incredibly controversial upon its publication in 1960. There was kind of nothing like this had really been published in Ireland. This book was heavily censored. It wasn't sold in bookshops. It was burned in Edna O'Brien's hometown. It's really an incredible story if you want to read about that. Edna O'Brien is a living legend. So especially these last couple years, there's been a real boom in like Irish women writers gaining a lot of popularity. But yeah, we would not have Sally Rooney, Naoise Dolan, Louise Nealon. We would not have any of these authors, any of their incredible books without Edna O'Brien, really. But yeah, this was incredible. This was really great. I loved Kate and Baba. They feel so real as individuals and their friendship. Like the way they treat each other, sometimes horribly, sometimes really lovingly. The way they speak to each other, their little foibles and their little eccentricities, like they feel so real, and I really loved this. I'm definitely continuing this series very shortly, very like immediately, really. But yeah, this was great. I've been wanting to read this for ages. It's frankly a little embarrassing that I haven't read it yet, but yes, huge fan. This was really hit me. I loved it. And that is all I have today. That is a wrap on December. That's a wrap on my 2021 wrap-ups. I have a couple more fun videos planned, hopefully when I have a little more energy and a little less post-vacation malaise. So again, thank you for watching and Happy New Year as well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!